everyone, it's Nina. Thanks for joining me today for another video. I'm excited to be sharing today's projects with you because I have 4 Christmas cards to share, and they're all using contents from Simon Says Stamp's Home for the Holidays limited edition holiday card kit. And this card kit is jam-packed with some great products that you can use to make vintage-inspired holiday cards. This card kit that I'm using today is a limited edition, so it is only available while supplies last. However, pretty much everything that I'm using from the kit is available for individual purchase. So if you do miss out on the kit, you can still purchase the individual components. All right, so let's dive on in because I've got a lot to share and there's a lot of things to create. So why don't we start with this card that has a really dramatic color palette. I'm going to use the Home for Christmas stamp set and pull out this little tiny star image that's from the set and use that to fill in some of the crossword areas of this puzzle on the pattern paper. So some of these squares I wanted to add a little bit more red to the pattern paper. I thought that would really be a nice contrast to the elements that are going to go on top. So by having that little star fill in some of those spaces, it really adds that nice pop of red. Now I'm going to take some white paint and splatter this on top of my background just for a little bit of distressing. This is Dina Wakley white spray, and I've just poured it into a triangle tray so I can easily pick it up with a paintbrush. This splatter is going to add some nice texture to the background and break things up a little bit. Inside the kit are not only those great festive pattern papers, but also some ephemera, and both the papers and ephemera are from Simple Stories. I'm using this ephemera tag that has a cute little clip on it with a number 25, and I'm going to finish off the word Christmas with some of these Tim Holtz Christmas ideology stickers. I've sorted through here and found one that I thought would go really nice. In the air, there's a feeling of Christmas. I already have the word Christmas though on my tag, so I actually don't need that Christmas that's on the sticker. So I'm just going to actually trim this down. I do want the sentiment to be in 3 parts, so I'm going to have in the air on one line, and then there's a feeling of is the second line. Finally, Christmas will be the third, and that'll complete the whole greeting. So these are just stickers, so I can stick them right down onto my tag, and I don't need any adhesive, which is super handy. Once I have my stickers replaced, now I'm going to work on a little focal point that's going to go behind my tag. This is going to get created with the layering rosette stencil set that's part of the kit. This stencil set is so much fun. I actually used this stencil set twice today for some cards because it's so clever and it creates these rosettes that look so dimensional, but they are flat, so it makes it easy to mail. I'm working on top of a Simon Says Stamp Positively Perfect craft tacky mat to hold my paper in place. My stencil's the same size as my paper on this particular piece, so I'm actually holding the stencil down with tape. But I'm using artichoke ink to add a little bit of ink blending to the first layer here. This is creating 2 sets of the rosette stripes, and then the second piece here is going to fill in the other side of those stripes. So for my rosette, this is going to be the darker layer. I'm going to use Kale ink for that, because I want this to have some nice contrast. We want this to look dimensional. So I'm going to then use the Kale ink to ink blend on the second layer. Once I have both of these layers stenciled, we're going to see this rosette start to come together really nicely. These piece together very easily, so when I bring in the next set of rosette layers, you're going to see how they nestle into these spaces really easily. But look at this. This is looking so dimensional already, and we're not even done yet. All right, so now I'm going to bring in the inner portion of my rosette layers here, and this one I'm going to nestle in between the green areas. We're going to color this one with reds. So for this, I'm using rhubarb as my lightest color, and I want to make sure that I put my lightest red on the same side as I did the lightest green, because we want to make sure that our shadows are following the same direction. So I'm going to apply that rhubarb first, and this also colors the center of the rosette. And now I'm going to bring in my darker color, which is cranberry. This is the darkest shade of the trio that I'm using here. I didn't use apple, which is the middle color. So once I have my stencil laid down, then I can bring in cranberry and finish up coloring those last little stripes of the rosette. Now that we have all of our pieces colored, I can remove the stencil and look at this. It is so amazing. It looks 3D, but this is completely flat, which is so cool. So I'm going to carefully lift this off of my craft tacky mat. I do want to show you, I clean my craft tacky mat a lot of times with my Simon Says stamp cleaner because it's really good for getting ink off of your surface. You could also use a baby wipe, but I do find that the stamp cleaner works really well. Your craft tacky mat may stain with different colors of inks such as reds and pinks, but it's not going to harm the function of the mat. Okay, so I'm going to bring in the coordinating dies and I'm going to cut out just the outer part of this particular rosette. There are inner areas that you can cut out to make dimensional pieces, which I will do later, but for this one I just wanted it flat because it's going to go behind my tag. This is creating a really neat little design behind the tag though, and it's adding some great Christmas colors. I did punch a hole through the ephemera tag because I did want to string a bit of twine through it. So I brought in some Simon Says Stamp red and white baker's twine. And I'm using foam squares in both thin and 3D to pop my elements up. So the rosette is going to get layered onto my card with the thin 3D foam squares, and then the tag is adhered down with the 3D. This is just adding some different levels of dimension on my card, which will give the card some depth and interest. I also want to tack down my little baker's twine pieces just so that way they stay in the form that I really like. I loved this little swirl, so I wanted to make sure that I glued them down so that way they stayed in that swirl, even when you put this in the envelope. So I'll just use some craft tacky glue from Simon Says Stamp to help me put a little bit of that adhesive on there and then tuck these where I want them on my card. For the card base, I'm bringing in some cream cardstock from Rainbow Splash, and I made an A2 card base. I did use this cream cardstock quite a bit throughout my projects because it was a nice color to go with the vintage feel of the cards. So this cream cardstock is an A2 size, and so is my panel that's going on top. So I'm going to use Simon Says Stamp glue stick to actually adhere these two pieces together because it'll give me a little bit of wiggle time to reposition the paper if I need to when I'm placing this down. And that way, if I need to, I can reposition it and not have to worry about tearing the paper. The glue stick doesn't dry instantly, so it gives me a little bit of time to work with it. And that's going to finish off card number 1. This one was simple, but I love all of the details, down to the fun little stars on the crossword puzzle background and our stickers that add the great little sentiment to go with the tag. The rosette is just a showstopper. I can't wait to show you the other card that I made with the rosette. But before that, let's check out this second card that I made with some of the fun pattern papers, ephemera, and even stamps. I'm going to die cut this Santa pattern paper with this Matinee Rectangles die set from Memory Box. I love this set. It's brand new, and it is so good for these vintage style cards. It kind of looks like a vintage label. So I'm going to use the largest one from my card here. This one's slightly smaller than an A2 card. And I'm going to make a card base from some midnight green cardstock from Simon Says Stamp. This will add some nice contrast behind the pattern paper, and it'll pull in the green colors of the paper nicely. I'm going to use this cute little ephemera piece from the kit to add a sentiment on it. I'm going to also stamp some images from the stamp set to surround my little ephemera piece. So this holly branch, I'm stamping onto some white cardstock, and I'm going to use intense black ink to do that. I want to be able to have 2 of them so I can flank the sentiment with these. I'm going to color them with just a couple of shades of markers. I picked 2 greens and 2 reds just to add a little bit of dimension. There's a lot of shading on these stamps, so it actually makes it really simple for you to color. You don't have to worry about adding a ton of shading because the stamps kind of really do that for you. So it makes it super simple to color. So I also have the coordinating dies for these stamps. The coordinating dies for the stamps do not come in the kit. They are a separate purchase. So if you do want the coordinating dies, you'll have to add those as another item to your cart. But I find the dies invaluable because not only do they come with the images, but they also have dies for the sentiments too. So it allows you to really get creative with your pieces. Now, I'm not going to actually die cut any of my sentiments for this card. I'm going to actually stamp onto that ephemera piece. I loved this note paper that's hanging out off of the left of this collection of ephemera. So I thought I would stamp the sentiment joy to go with kind of the grouping of greetings that are already printed on this ephemera piece. And that looks really, really nice. The sentiments in this stamp set are so good. It just feels so perfect for the style of the kit contents. Now I'm going to pop up my little holly pieces with 2 pieces of foam squares and then tuck them underneath of my ephemera so that it creates a lot of lift. This makes them look super dimensional and pop up off of the paper really nicely, but the stems are underneath the ephemera piece, so it's keeping them pinned down there, which is creating a lot of depth. That green cardstock also was the perfect backdrop for my pattern paper. I'm going to wrap a bit of that red and white baker's twine I used earlier around the front of my card. This is a top folding A2 card, so I'm just wrapping this around the front panel of my card so that way it doesn't impede the card from opening and closing. But that little bit of red and white baker's twine just looks so darling wrapped around this card. So you can see here it doesn't impede how this card opens. I thought it would be fun to add a little bit of snow texture to this. I want just some snow hanging off of some of the elements. So I brought in this paste, it's called Snow Tex, and it's kind of funny because it's gritty and very puffy, and it creates the perfect texture of snow. It can be a little funny to work with. It doesn't apply quite as smoothly as a regular paste, so it does take a little bit of fiddling, but once you get it down, it looks so good and it dries onto your project really well, so it's not going to fall off, and I just love how it looks like there is snow flocking these elements. Check how it's hanging off of the holly leaves and the ephemera panels. Really, really cool. So that's going to complete card number 2. These are simple cards to make, not too difficult, but I wanted them to all feature some really cool elements. So each one of these has quite a different look, but they all feature some fun techniques and, of course, contents from the kit. So now let's use those rosette stencils again. This time I have cut the paper down a little bit smaller, so it's actually smaller than my stencils, and that way my craft tacky mat can actually hold the stencil and paper together, which is kind of the idea of the mat. So I'm going to do the same kind of process that I did for my first rosette, but this time I'm using just red and also a light gray. I wanted this to be a red and white striped rosette. So for the white area, I'm actually only going to use the shadow layer for the rosette. I don't want to color the other layer because that's supposed to be white. And for the shadow, I'm using Lost Shadow from Tim Holtz Distress Ink to add that just subtle bit of shading for the shadowed areas of the rosette. And that makes it look super cool. Now for the areas that are white, I'm actually going to cover those with paste. I brought in this Brutus Monroe Fallen Snow paste, and it's a really nice pretty white sparkle, and it's going to add the perfect little shine to my rosette. So this will make the white areas sparkle, which looks really pretty. So I'm going to set that aside to dry, and once it did, then I could use the coordinating dies to cut it out. If you notice, I also colored another rosette off to the right on a scrap piece of paper. That's because I want to add some dimension to the middle red section of my rosette, and I also want to cut out the center portion of the glitter piece. So by using all of the coordinating dies for the rosette, I can cut out all of my elements, and that's going to allow me then to start popping them up on top of each other to create some dimension. So the red piece is going to get adhered down first. That's going right in the center, and by having the stenciling already done in that middle area, that helps me know where to place this. And plus, when you see this from the side, you're not going to see any blank white areas. You'll see the color showing through. And then the little center piece got glued down as well with foam squares. I was really inspired by the pattern papers that included that fun rosette pattern, so I'm going to go ahead and die cut that from the same matinee panels that I used earlier, and that rosette is going to get layered on top as a beautiful ornament. So this is going to get popped up with foam squares as well. This is a very dimensional card. You don't have to use this much foam squares, but I really love dimensions, so this is why I was going to town. I'm going to bring in also one of the sentiments from the sticker book and cut out this little strip so that way I can adhere this down along the bottom of my card underneath the rosette. 'Tis the season to be jolly, I thought was fun and festive and went nicely with the style of the card. I trimmed off any excess that was hanging off the sides, and then for the rosette I do want to add a little bit of some cording just to make it look like it's hanging off of my card, and this will also give me a place to tie a fun little bow. So the foam squares are going to help hold that cording in place on the back side of the rosette, and then I will flip this over and adhere the other end of my cording to the back side of my paper with just a little bit of tape. Then I can trim off any of that excess and tie a little bit of a bow around the top of that cording. That's going to finish this off really nicely and make this feel like a pretty little ornament hanging off of our card. You could actually make this an ornament if you wanted to. You could have this attached as a removable item so that your recipient could actually take it off and put it on their tree if they wanted to. That would be a fun idea. So I'm making another card base out of that same cream cardstock that I've been using. This is from Rainbow Splash. And I'm going to layer this behind my pinwheels, which looks so cute. I think the rosettes here are just stunning, and especially by having that stencil to create the dimensional one with any color of ink, it's so cool. I did use some cherry dazzling gems from Simon Says Stamp to add a center to each of the rosettes only on the pattern paper. I did not do that to our stenciled rosette. I thought by including a dazzling gem there, we just get too busy, and I like that it was kept simple. So there we go. We have card number 3 complete, fun and festive, and just so cool with the dimensional rosette. I can't get enough of using this stencil. I didn't use it for my final card. I wanted to use something else. It was the festive snowman die. And the reason I wanted to use him so badly was because I actually designed this die for the kit. So I was really, really excited to use him. I'm using the Simon Says Stamp Positively Velvet paper that's included in the kit to cut out the snowman. I'm also using one of the deco sheets to cut out his little band for his hat. And I've also used some different colors of cardstocks to cut out his other pieces. So his hat is cut from some black glossy, which you can tuck on top of his head. There's a little slit that's created when you die cut the hat. Then the bow I cut from some metallic red cardstock, which looks so festive. And then for his other accessories like his mouth and buttons, I used just a simple black cardstock. I used orange for his carrot nose, a light pink for the blush on his cheeks. Oh, and his eyes, I also used the simple black cardstock as well. So all of these pieces I glued down onto my snowman with some Simon Says Stamp craft tacky glue. And again, the base of him is made with that Positively Velvet, which is such a great texture for creating snow on your die cuts. It's such a fun paper. So here's how the snowman turned out. He's adorable. I was so excited with how he turned out. When you design something and then you actually get to use it, it's such a fun and rewarding experience. All right, so I've picked out another ephemera piece, and this one I'm going to adhere onto this cute plaid pattern paper that I also cut from the matinee panels that I've been using throughout this video. The snowman's going to get popped up with foam squares on top of the ephemera. I'm going to put him off to the right side of this cluster. I did want to tie a bit of ribbon around the panel. I had this ribbon from a package that was sent to me by a very dear friend of mine, and I love the ribbon so much. I wanted to make sure to use it on this project. I couldn't bear to throw this away. So I'm going to tie this around the bottom of my panel just to give it a fun little festive touch. The little gold dots on this ribbon are so cute. Then for some gold accents to go with that ribbon, I brought in these snowflakes. These are from Simon Says Stamp's Sparkling Snowflake Frame and Trio die set. It's a really good die set for the frame, but it also includes these great little individual snowflakes, which I thought looked perfect with my fun little festive snowman. So then this is going to get put onto another cream card base that I made with the Rainbow Splash cardstock. And then I added a simple little greeting from the Home for Christmas stamp set. Said Season's Greetings. I stamped that with embossing ink onto black cardstock, and then I used cream embossing powder to heat set that sentiment to really give me that really nice soft touch. The cream embossing powder is slightly less intense than the white, so it really adds that perfect vintage feel. And that's going to do it for card number 4 and all of the cards that I've made today using the Simon Says Stamp holiday card kit for 2024. It's a limited edition, but it's so cute and full of nostalgic Christmas charm. All of the contents that I used today you can also find in the video description below and on my blog. If you missed out on the card kit, don't worry. Pretty much everything that I've used is available for individual purchase. So be sure to check out all the links below for you to find all of the individual pieces. If you do want to get the kit and it is still available, just make sure you grab it while you can because it is limited edition. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you were inspired and got some ideas on how you can use all of these elements together to make some festive vintage holiday cards. Until next time, friends, have a fabulous day and thanks again for stopping by.